Welcome, everyone. So nice to have you join us today. I'm really so excited to talk to you about my favorite subject ever, which is Ayurveda and the intersection of Ayurveda, the world's oldest system of health and healing, with really ancient spirituality that informs this tradition. And I would love to know, while we're just waiting for people to come in, where you all are calling in from. If you want, you can chat and type in your location in the chat and how the weather is where you are. It'd be fun to see where folks are coming in from today. I somehow am not always able to read the chats while I'm in the webinar mode, but I will look at them afterwards. Or maybe I'll get lucky. I'm seeing if it will work for me. If you're adding your locations on here, sometimes it's a little bit challenging to navigate to other places in the webinar, but sometimes I get it. I got it today. Wonderful. So I see someone, Aline is coming from Zurich, Switzerland. Gemma is from Madrid. Welcome. Hello, Christina from Geneva, Switzerland. A beautiful place to be right now. Diana from Paris, welcome. Hello, Jessica. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. From Noosa, Australia. Such a beautiful place. I had been to Australia many years ago. Hello, Anna Maria from North Carolina. Nice to hear that there's a warm place in the United States right now. I am personally in New York City. Welcome, Irina from Turin, Italy, with great sunny weather today. That's wonderful to hear. And I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing any of your names, but I'm doing my best to at least welcome you, if not in the correct pronunciation. Hello to Fabian from Thailand, Eli or Ili from Paris. So nice to have you. Lena from Rome. Wow, we have such a wonderful global community here today. And I am reporting live from New York City, where it's also a really beautiful, sunny, mild kind of day today. And I'm so excited to talk to you about how to really nourish your mind, body, and spirit. These past several months have been such a challenging time for all of us throughout the world as we've been navigating a whole new way of life and a whole new normal with all of the events of the coronavirus that have influenced our lives in such an extreme and dramatic way. So today, oops, just going to try to exit the chat box now. One moment. Sorry, this gets a little bit slow as I try to navigate through it. One second. Okay, wonderful. So we are here to talk about food for your soul and how Ayurveda can really nourish your body, mind, and spirit. I am Ananta Ripa Ajmera. I am founder and CEO of The Ancient Way, a very newly launched organization. We really try to serve as a bridge between the ancient wisdom of yoga and Ayurveda and actually all of the world's wisdom traditions and what they have in common. And we try to bridge that ancient wisdom with the realities of modern day living. We do this through food, seasonal recipes, through lifestyle practices, through really applied spirituality and online classes and workshops and trainings. We are really so excited to have this new website for you, which I'll share more about later on in the webinar. I also am so honored to serve as director of Ayurveda at The Well, which is a really beautiful, beautiful wellness club in the heart of New York City, when the world opens up again, I really do hope many of you will join us for some beautiful programming there, where I am fortunate to work with so many incredible integrative medical practitioners across all different healing traditions like Chinese medicine, functional medicine, health coaching, massage therapy, and Reiki, energy work, and so many other different modalities under one roof. We also have sports medicine, and we have fitness classes and beautiful programs and beautiful food as well in our club here in the city. Today, we're going to have a whole hour together. The first 40 to 45 minutes, I will be sharing about the topic of today, which is food for your soul. In the final 15 to 20 minutes, we'll do a Q&A, so I'll get a chance to interact with you. It's really important that you ask your questions only in the Q&A box, and you can also vote for the ones that you want to hear answers for. The chat should not be used for questions, but if there's anything else that you wish to share, you can definitely do so in the chat box, as you just did, to share where you're from. And I'll just be looking at the Q&A to be able to answer your questions at the end. I'll come out of this window and we'll just be with you on camera to do that. So anything that you're wondering or that comes up throughout the course of the 1 hour, just feel free to type it and I will come to it in the end. So welcome. Ayurveda is the world's oldest system of health and healing, and we have a really incredible seasonal approach to eating. Everything in Ayurveda revolves around the sun. So there's a whole science to why we eat, what we eat throughout the year, and it's based on the movement of the earth around the sun. This is actually a page from my first book called The Ayurveda Way. It's a really simple, beginner-friendly book that takes you through 108 simple practices that you can try to apply ancient wisdom to your everyday life. In Ayurveda, we have this concept of there being different tastes associated with foods that make them beneficial for you at different times of the year. In the fall, which we're in right now, we have this understanding that it's really helpful to eat foods that are sweet, bitter, and astringent. And this is often what you'll find in your local area whenever it's fall for you. So right now, for those of us who are in the northern hemisphere, it is fall. And so we followed this kind of prescription in terms of having things with the sweet, bitter, and astringent tastes. In the wintertime, we actually have a higher digestive capacity because in the wintertime, it's typically cold outside or colder relative to the climate that it is during the other times of the year. When it's colder outside, our digestion actually becomes stronger. In Ayurveda, we have a really, really interesting understanding of digestion as being poetically like a fire. And this digestive fire is something that is connected to the sun. The sun is like a big fire in the universe, and our digestion is like a small sun, if you will. It's like a small representation of the sun that we see in the sky. And our inner sun, or our inner digestive fire, as we call it in Ayurveda, it works in an inverse proportion to the outer sun. What that means in simple language is that when it's really hot and the sun is really strong, then our inner fire, our inner sun, tries to cool down, and we don't have as much capacity to eat, therefore, when it's really hot outside. But then when the weather gets colder and the sun's power is less, then our inner sun, our inner digestion, kind of compensates for that to bring us to a state of homeostasis. So that's why the winter time is a really great time to eat heavier foods, to eat holiday foods, to eat maybe some of your favorite foods. There's less kind of restrictions around what we want to eat at that time for health. And then as we go into the springtime, it's a really excellent time for cleansing the body, eating lighter foods, eating foods that are more of the bitter taste, that are a little more pungent and heating. The heat of the food helps us to break it down even further. Um, if you think about when you're washing your dishes and you are washing dishes with cold water, it makes it really hard to clean them properly. It takes a longer time. When you wash the same dishes with warm or hot water, all of the dirt and the residue, it just falls off of the plates or the bowls. And if you think about digestion, the way that the Ayurveda sages have revealed how digestion works, it's very similar. When we have a good amount of heat in our body and a decent amount of heat in our metabolism and our digestive fire, and it's really active and warm, then we're able to break down the food and it moves more easily out of the body and we really digest it well, and then it cleanses our system. We believe that having a balanced digestion is the root cause of overall good health. Therefore, all of these guidelines that we get in Ayurveda are just helping us to really keep our digestion in a really optimal state. In the springtime, it's kind of a dewy time of year. It's moist, things are growing, there's a lot of water, and a lot of that kind of spring pollen and all of that growth that's happening. So we want things that are going to be a little more dry. We want to be lighter. We want to just really do like a spring cleaning from the inside out. So we eat foods that are a little more pungent and like peppers and hotter spices at that time. And then in the summertime, it's the opposite philosophy where it's so hot outside that we want things that are more cooling, that are sweet and a little bit sour and salty. That will actually really help to keep us in a state of balance. And this is a time of year when we want to eat less, when we want to eat foods that are a little more moist and that actually give us more moisture to compensate for all the dryness that is around us during the summer season. This is a time where cucumbers and pomegranates and more cooling things are really, really helpful for us. So this is, just a very, very high level snapshot of some of the incredible seasonal guidance that Ayurveda has to offer us. We really believe that food is medicine in the Ayurveda tradition. There's an ancient Ayurvedic proverb that says, when your food is correct, medicine is of no need. When your diet is incorrect, then medicine is of no use. We really believe that food is so central to our entire health and state of well being. And digestion is really the key to that. This is why we have this other saying in Ayurveda that you are not actually just what you eat. You are what you eat, but it's more than that. You are what you digest. And unfortunately, you are also what you do not digest. And that's why it's really, really important that we digest our food. In Ayurveda, digestion is called Agni in Sanskrit. Sanskrit is the ancient language of yoga and Ayurveda. Yoga and Ayurveda are sister sciences, and they have this beautiful common language. Having a balanced digestive fire is considered the root cause of good overall health. According to Ayurveda, and actually according to all of the different modalities that I work with at the well, digestion is something that's happening at many different levels. It's about digestion of your food. It's also about digesting information that we're processing constantly. A lot of us may be tuned in right now, especially to what information is coming about the United States elections. We have to digest that. It can sometimes feel really heavy in our stomach, to take in certain information. Emotions also can have that effect. Emotions can really stir us up physically. In the ancient Ayurveda texts, actually, it says that the root cause of all kinds of different physical disorders can be emotions. For example, fear, like that real, like physical sensation, that real visceral feeling of fear can actually cause loose stools. It's like your body gets shaken up and then the food doesn't digest, it just kind of swims right out in the form of water. And that's just one example. But there's so many examples. Even our skin, when we have skin issues, then that means that the food did not get digested and instead it came out in the form of rashes or breakouts of pimples or hives or anything like that. That's all showing that your digestion somewhere did not quite happen properly, and therefore there's a breakout through the skin. Even all different kinds of issues can have that root cause of an emotional issue. It can also be that you're not eating foods that are really settling well with you. And what will work well for you may be different from what works well for me. We all like to follow the seasonal guidance in Ayurveda, but then we also have a very customized personal approach to health, which is very much about looking at your individual constitution and seeing what foods would bring you into a state of balance and then what foods would maybe not be so helpful for you. It's all about how do we get you to have a really good digestion. And so we want to digest our food, we want to digest our information, we want to digest our emotions, and we want to digest our life experiences. A lot of us, even in this past year, may have had some really unusual or sad or scary life experiences. It's really, really important that we somehow dedicate time and effort to be able to digest those experiences, even for our physical and emotional and psychological well being. And I'll be sharing with you some spiritual practices that I like to do, which help with that, to really be able to process and reflect on everything that you take in and everything that you then put back out into the world. It's all about you in Ayurveda and how do we really keep you in an optimal state. And you may be wondering, you keep talking about how we have to digest our food properly and digestion is considered the key to health, but how do we know that we have a good digestion? The short answer is that you'll have a regular elimination every morning, ideally, and it will be easy. There won't be any straining. It will be a good consistency elimination and regular, and you'll just feel satisfied afterwards. Like how animals, when they go to the bathroom, then they run and they play and they feel lighter and freer. That's basically how you know that your digestion is working well, and you won't have any of the other symptoms, or health issues or imbalances as well. One of the beautiful practices that really brings together food and spirituality is the art of sacred mindful eating. It's not just what you eat, but how you eat that really makes a big difference for your well being. And I want to explain to you how this beautiful art works, because in Ayurveda, we have both an art as well as a really sophisticated science. The science of Ayurveda is rooted in the laws of physics. And in Ayurveda, when we look at the mind, we see that there are these three qualities or three forces of nature in the mind. If you've heard a little bit about Ayurveda, you may have heard of the three doshas. These are the mind body types or the bio forces called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. They're made up of different combinations of the five great elements. Vata dosha is air and space elements. Pitta dosha is made up of fire and water elements. And Kapha dosha is made up of the earth and water elements. And we all have all of these in different combinations and different proportions. If you were to work with me or another Ayurveda practitioner one-on-one, we can cue you in to what your dosha may be and which one may be out of balance for you and how to bring it back into balance. And just like there are these three bioforces for the physical body that are made up of the five great elements, there are also three forces of nature in your mind. And this text here, Charaka Samhita, it's one of the ancient Ayurveda texts. Everything I teach about comes from the ancient source text. So you can trust that it's credible because it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. The subtle forces of the mind are called gunas. Guna is a Sanskrit word which means a strand, a thread, or a rope. And these are intertwining forces that basically make up our human consciousness at a really subtle, deep level. Science, philosophy, and poetry really come together in such an incredible way in the manner in which the ancient Ayurveda texts describe Ayurveda psychology. It's one of my favorite subjects. We have these three qualities, and the first quality is called tamas. Tamas means inertia. This is the unconscious part of the mind. I will compare it often to a thick fog that's responsible for what I've named the triple D's that we do not want: depression, darkness, and denial. This is what creates confusion in us. We often know better, but we don't do better. First of all, for our own selves. It's because of this unconscious part of the mind. And when this unconscious part of the mind is active, it causes us to go against our own inner knowing or our own inner wisdom. It causes addictions. It causes, at a really extreme level, some criminal behaviors. It can be really hard to understand even some of the actions of our world leaders. And when we have trouble fathoming even like terrorists and people who do things that really hurt lots of people, it's because there is this quality that's more active in the mind. We all have all three qualities. There's no such thing as, you have this quality and have this pure quality. No, we all have all three, but it's just the proportion to which they are active. And what we do on a daily basis helps us to bring up our lighter, pure, more balanced qualities and to lessen some of these dark, heavy um, qualities, like the unconscious part of the mind. And that's why the spiritual practices are so nourishing at such a deep level. And that's why we also want to eat foods that are going to make us feel less unconscious and more conscious. And I'll explain that to you in a moment here. It's important to have some inertia. We want some kind of heaviness in our being to help us sleep, right? If we didn't have any feeling of lethargy or stuckness, then we would never rest. We would never pause. We would never be able to sleep at night. So we do need to have this quality, but we need to have it in a state of balance. It's all about balance in Ayurveda. If there were a single word to summarize health in Ayurveda, it really would be balance. And when we look at foods, foods can have different qualities, and foods can have this tamasic inertia inducing quality. When you eat leftover food, processed foods, canned, frozen, and very heavy foods, they make you feel heavy. And when I say heavy, sometimes people get confused. It basically means foods that sit in your stomach for a long time and make you feel like you want to go to sleep after. These are a lot of the convenience foods that you see. It's a lot of the stuff that's packaged and processed and maybe given some chemicals to help increase its shelf life. When we eat foods like this a lot, we tend to feel like, darkness, depression, denial. Have you experienced that where you'll eat something really heavy or you'll have like a frozen meal, but then you just don't feel very good afterwards? That is because this quality in the mind gets increased when we have foods that are falling into this particular category. The second category or quality of the mind is called rajas. Rajas is agitation, whereas tamas was about inertia and not being able to move. Rajas is about moving too much and too fast. This is the activating force. This is like action, passion, motion. New York City, normally, where I live, is like this. It's not really because of everything that's happening with the global pandemic, but normally it moves fast. Normally, big cities have a lot of this quality to them. It's like a stormy day at the lake, whereas the inertia lake, it was kind of polluted and it was muddy and it was sticky. This lake is really, uh, it's very fast moving and it's turbulent. We don't really feel rested after we come back from an experience like this. It's like a tornado or a thunderstorm that has hit. And mentally, when we have too much movement in the mind, it can create anxiety. It can create kind of a spinning aspect of the mind where it just goes in a loop. Out of balance, when we have this quality of rajas too much in us, it can create some judgments. It can create some kind of discontent. It can lead us to say some white lies. It can just, make our tongue a little more sharp than perhaps we wanted it to be. And when we move too fast and we're going, 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 then we can easily crash and we can have some burnout. So, this rajas quality is definitely connected with the tamas quality. In balance, it's the ultimate get things done quality, but we need to keep it in balance so that we're productive, but not in overdrive or getting really anxious or irritable or, agitated beyond a point. There are foods that make us feel passionate and agitated and excited. Sometimes we need a little bit of spice to pick us up. And if we've been having foods like a lot of pastries, for example, they're really sweet. They sit in your stomach for a long time, and they can make you feel tired. But then, if you're eating a lot of that, you may want to introduce some spices. In the Indian cooking, often even in our sweets, we include some pungent spices like saffron and cardamom in them. But typically, for regular cooking of savory foods, we like to have spices. We like to use all of these spices that you see here, like ginger, um, ajwain seeds, or they're called bishop sweet seeds, fenugreek seeds, mustard seeds, black pepper. These are all great spices. When you have a lot of them, however, they can also create some agitation. So we try to have these spices kind of in moderation. If we tend to gravitate towards any of these other friends here, they're not really friends. They're more like seductive people who want to reel us in and manipulate us and control our mind and make us feel agitated and sharp and anxious. Doritos, the chips, the chilies, the wasabi, even candy bars, they're all having a lot of this activating quality. We feel like, whoa, I'm awake, I'm energized, I'm alive after I eat them. But then after the sugar high, there may be a crash. And that's what we want to avoid. So we want to avoid foods that are too spicy, too salty, too sweet, too much kind of all these uh, activating things. What we're all looking for ultimately is sattva. Sattva comes from the root Sanskrit word sat, which means truth. The true nature of your mind, and believe it or not, every mind, is sattva. The true nature of the mind is sattva. So much so that the Ayurveda sages have even said that sattva is a synonym for mind in Ayurveda. It's a word for the mind. Sattva is the perfect balance of rajas and tamas. It's the balance of action and inertia. It inspires us, it uplifts us. Sattva gives us clarity, it gives us compassion, it gives us health and well being. We talked about how in Ayurveda, health is a matter of balance. And it's this sattva quality, this pure quality, this harmonious quality that gives us balance. It's our true quality, and we just need to return to our true nature. The good news that Ayurveda has to share with us is that health is your birthright, and health is the nature of every living being. And when we return to living in harmony with nature through Ayurveda's seasonal guidance, through its daily guidance, through its deep spiritual rituals and practices, we are able to awaken our true balanced nature of sattva. The foods that give us sattva are fresh, light, and easy to digest. Typically, when we cook with ghee, clarified butter, it makes the food automatically more digestible, especially if we add some simple spices to it. We like to cook with cumin, fennel, fenugreek seeds. These are all really light and fresh and simple spices. They're really easy to digest. They're not too heating for you. They are really so excellent. In the Ayurveda texts, in the ancient textbooks, we have a whole chapter on the therapeutic benefits of ghee. It's so long and there's so many benefits, and they're all connected with one root benefit, which is that ghee is so good for boosting your digestion. Having wonderful skin, having a strong voice, having a very fit body, and all of these things that we may want come from having a really tip top, wonderful digestion. So, all the things that bring us good digestion will then bring us good health. And that's why the chapter on ghee is so long. In Ayurveda, we are not a vegan tradition. It is actually a tradition that really embraces all kinds of different dairy. It's important, though, that the dairy is from animals who are treated well. The treatment of the animals also gets, put into the food. So if you are to have regular dairy milk, then it's a really good idea to research where you can get fresh cow's milk and get cow shares if possible. I know we have them available here in the United States, in states like California and New York and several other states. You can order milk that comes fresh from cows that are treated really well. Um, and in other parts of the world, I'm sure there are ways to procure that. For the ancient way, my organization and all of the many recipes we've been creating that are to give you this sattvic or sattva state of mind, we have made them with plant-based milks instead of dairy milk, just because for the typical person it's hard to consume or to procure the fresh milk from well-treated animals. So, as a organization and personally, I tend to not do as much of the dairy, but it is definitely a part of the Ayurvedic tradition. And the cow's milk from the really well treated cows, it really does bring about a beautiful balance in the mind when you cook it with some turmeric and spices. You can also cook almond milk or whatever oat milk, whatever kind of plant based milk you like with these spices. And that's a really, really excellent thing. I have all kinds of recipes like this in my book, The Ayurveda Way, and on the ancientway.co website. So you can definitely check that out and get some ideas for how to eat in this way after the webinar. Cardamom is a wonderful spice as well. I mentioned that you can add that to sweets. Actually, even a lot of the Western pastries and the baked goods tend to have cardamom in them. And cardamom is really cool because it actually literally is cooling for you. It also boosts your digestion at the same time. Typically, the spices that boost your digestion do not cool you down. They typically heat you up. So it's cool when you can find spices like cardamom and cilantro also, and pomegranates that are boosting your digestion and at the same time cooling your body. They're really, really good, and they're especially really good for the fall season. We love nuts, we love ripe fruits as well. All of this brings about a lot of peacefulness in the mind. When you have this really wonderful, freshly cooked food from the vegetables straight from the farm or the farmer's market, it's just a totally different experience from having something that comes out of the freezer and you just warm it up. It's like, you can taste the energy of it. There's an expression in the yogic tradition called prana. Prana is like your vital energy or your vital force. And the foods that are fresh from the farm like this, they really activate that prana. They activate your life force and they make you feel really energized and really vital and ready for the day ahead. In Ayurveda, your food should delight all of your senses. We believe that your digestion starts from the first sight and the first smell of your food. It is a beautiful experience. We believe that our environment is also extremely important. When we talk about digestion, we also digest our surroundings. Therefore, we want to, as much as possible, eat in a place that inspires us. A lot of us, most of us, probably are still working from home or wherever we're calling home these days during the pandemic. If we can make our home into a beautiful haven and add some fresh flowers to our table, if we can, if it is one of these beautiful sunny places where some of you are reporting from, sunny outside, then you can perhaps try to set up an outdoor eating space. That would be really nice because it's close to nature. You can digest the wonderful rays of the sun while you eat, as long as it's not too hot for you. It's really nice to eat by flowers in nature and trees. There's just an incredible therapeutic aspect to breathing in the fresh air and eating your food in such pleasing and wonderful surroundings. We even take great care in terms of what kinds of cutlery we use. When I was little, I used to have a favorite spoon, and as I grew up, I'm like, wow, that's kind of embarrassing. Like, why did I like the spoon so much? It had a little flower on it, and then like stems of a flower going down the base. And then I learned in Ayurveda that even your cutlery is really important. You want to eat with things that inspire you and that give you that sense of aesthetic satisfaction and beauty. So I'm like, okay, great. My favorite spoon was my favorite for a reason. And why not have some things that you eat with that give you that kind of joy and pleasure. These are just some of the different recipes that are in my book, The Ayurveda Way, and that are representative of lots of other recipes coming out on the Ancient Way site. And there's a lot of care that goes into even photographing these foods to really stimulate digestion, even from the thought of the food, even as you're looking at it. It's like that process has begun. I've been cooking a lot because I've been working on a cookbook with Ayurveda and producing the photos and recipes for my website. And man, it really does start from the photo. So I've really enjoyed just looking at photos and then recreating them and really adding a lot of beauty to them to make it that full five senses experience. Even if you're traveling, it's really helpful to eat in a place that inspires you. Eat in a beautiful cafe, eat in a place where they're cooking with fresher ingredients and really, making it a wonderful experience. Again, flowers come in. We have a whole floral component to Ayurveda. Marigolds are actually really incredible medicine for all of your five senses. You can even garnish savory foods with marigold petals. You can get a lot of ideas for Ayurvedic healthy seasonal twists on old favorite foods like pastas and even pizzas on our website. And that makes eating healthy a lot of fun. I figured, okay, if people are really going to do this Ayurveda healthy lifestyle, then we got to make it cool. We got to make it fun. We got to make it appeal to what we're used to and give us some alternatives to the things that we like that are actually going to help us if we eat them at the right time of year and in the right way. Speaking of the right way to eat your food, it's really, really so important to allow your mind and emotions to really settle before you eat your food. If you're actively really anxious, really scared, really stressed, really angry, or really worried, then just try to even sit calmly with yourself. Close your eyes, take a deep breath through your nose, ideally, and allow the emotions to settle before you eat. We have to digest our emotions. If we try to eat our food while we're experiencing the emotions, it doesn't settle so well in our stomach. So that's a really, really important practice. When we're eating, we want to really approach the act of eating as a sacred experience and really treat the body like a temple for the soul. Ayurveda is ultimately a spiritual science. Therefore, we want to really make it a sacred one and take a moment to give thanks for the food and really look at the food, feel the appreciation for the whole chain of events that brought you that food. Thank the farmers who cultivated the food and brought it to you, the people who, gave the merchandise, gave the ability for you to buy it. Thank the person who cooked the food. If it's you, thank yourself. If it's someone else, really appreciate that person's efforts. And once you've had this beautiful moment of Thanksgiving, a universal Thanksgiving, then try chewing up to 30 times. The idea is not to trip ourselves up over counting the number of times we've chewed. The idea is to really savor each bite. You want to really experience your food, feel the texture, experience the flavors, and just be in the moment as you're eating. It helps if you can, if you're even able to eat by yourself, that's a really wonderful thing to do. You can also even close your eyes while you're eating. That helps to take in the food even better. And as you're eating, it's like a space to process and it's a space to reflect and to digest the emotions, the life experiences, the information, and the food simultaneously. It's recommended to sit in a yoga pose called Vajrasana after eating your food. You just sit exactly like I'm showing in this photo. Sit up nice and straight and tall, and you're sitting on your heels. When you do this, you are connecting your highest consciousness, so this whole area, with the best of your physical manifestation. The thunderbolt pose really benefits your digestive health. When you sit with your eyes closed, sitting up straight, even if you're not able to sit like this, but just simply sitting straight and closing your eyes and visualize that your food is digesting. When you do this whole visualization of your food really converting into nutrients and into strength and power and immunity and vitality for your system, your mind is having so much power to be able to manifest health in your body and to really create the kind of well being that you deserve to have. So it really helps to experience that power that you have with your mind and your body connecting. If there's anything that is difficult for you, you can also just imagine that you're digesting that you are the master, and the master is able to take in anything, even poison, and still digest it and not be harmed by it. This is like the soul power, the spiritual power that Ayurveda gives us as you go deeper and deeper into it. I find this simple practice, though, to be such a powerful spiritual one. It's bringing together food and your soul in such a beautiful way. It's so, so helpful, and it doesn't take very long to do. You can sit in Vajrasana for maybe 3 to 5 minutes after you eat, and it really helps give you a space to process and digest and reflect. Then it's recommended to take a 100-step walk after you eat. After you've sat in Vajrasana, then you can start to move, and it really helps to just do a really short walk. It doesn't have to be long. It's not like going for a hike after you finish your meal. It's just, taking a simple 100-step walk. It can even be around your home or your office if you're, working somewhere. Or ideally outside. We always like to stay as close to nature as possible in Ayurveda. Finally, I want to share with you a really powerful spiritual ritual that you can do first thing in the morning to remember the power of your own soul. Ultimately, healing and health come from the soul. They come from remembering the soul and remembering who you are as this powerful spiritual being, no matter what is going on around you or within you. First thing in the morning, I look at my hands and I acknowledge that the power of abundance lives at my fingertips. And you can feel free to join me. I won't be able to see you, but you can have the experience of looking at your hands with me and just silently affirm the power of abundance lives at my fingertips. The power of creativity and knowledge and wisdom lives in the palms of my hands. And at the base or the root of my hands lives the power of transformation. I have the power to shape my destiny. When I look at my hands first thing in the morning, and it's the first thought I think, that abundance, creativity, and the power of transformation live at my hands, it plants a seed for the rest of the day. There is an ancient saying from a text called the Upanishads originally that you may have heard of. It actually comes from this ancient text, and it says, when you sow a thought, you reap an action. When you sow an action, you reap a habit. When you sow a habit, you reap a character. And when you sow a character, you reap a destiny. Therefore, your life, your health, your well being, and your character, as well as your whole destiny, live right here in your own hands. It really helps so much to greet the sun early in the morning. It gives you so much of the sattva quality of the balance of the mind. It helps you to start your day with positivity, hope, clarity, and peace by simply remembering that I am a powerful being, no matter what. You can definitely feel free to check out my book. I actually got invited to this webinar through my book, The Ayurveda Way. I'm so grateful for that connection and to be able to share about all this with you. And if you want to read more, it's available wherever books are sold on Amazon and elsewhere. And then please keep in touch and feel free to visit me at theancientway.co. You can download all kinds of recipes that are available on the site, and there'll be many more coming out soon. Feel free to email me. You can also feel free to set up a complimentary 15-minute consult from anywhere in the world. We can talk on Zoom, and you can do that at thewell.com/Ayurveda. We can have a little consult, and you can ask me all your questions and get an idea of what it's like to work with an Ayurveda practitioner. There's also opportunities to schedule a longer session on there if you wish to do that. Now I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and then come back to answer your questions in the remaining time that we have here. Okay, so I see there's a question. Can you give an example of astringent foods? Yes, a good example of astringent foods would be pomegranate seeds, pineapple, and unripe bananas. These all have that kind of like puckering sensation on the tongue, and this is how you know that it's an astringent food. The astringent foods are really helpful for diarrhea, for if you have runny nose or anything like that. It's really, really great. Dry ginger powder and nutmeg also have a good amount of the astringent taste in them. Do you recommend any food or seeds for girls with an irregular menstrual cycle or to regulate hormones? This is a great question. It would definitely be a good idea, I would say, to schedule a 15-minute free consult to understand more about how we would fully address this through all of the different Ayurveda practices in terms of foods, lifestyle practices, and even some all-natural herbs that can be recommended to help to regulate the cycle. The one simple answer I could give to start with, and it's just a start, so it won't probably help the whole thing, but it will get you going in the right direction, is to increase the amount of cumin you consume. Cumin seeds and cumin powder are really, really helpful for helping to regulate menstrual cycles. They also help to, if you have menstrual cramps or PMS or anything like that, they help to calm you down and really get through that time of the month. So we really recommend to women to just have a little bit more of that. You can make a cumin seed tea and just put like 1/4 of a teaspoon of cumin seeds into boiling hot water and then drink it once it's come down to a drinkable temperature. We like to have warm water in Ayurveda because the warmth of the water kindles the digestive fire. And cumin seeds also gently kindle the digestion, and they're just really excellent for the female reproductive system. Even for pregnant women, for lactating mothers, they're really helpful because they're great for breast milk and for feeding the baby. Fabian says, what do you think about taking vitamins? Every day in the morning, I take zinc, vitamin B12, vitamin D, and probiotics. Fabian, we have a different approach in Ayurveda to supplements. We typically don't interact as much with these kinds of vitamins just because they were not known about in the ancient Ayurveda texts. And as I mentioned in the presentation, I tend to just share what I know from these ancient texts. I trust them because they've been around forever and I've really tested them out very thoroughly in the laboratory of my own life, and I've seen many clients and students also test them out and prove them to be true. So, what I usually do for myself is I like to take certain herbal supplements, which I find to be very, very helpful for preventing any kind of health issues from arising, even when I'm, relatively healthy. And I would say that would be the Ayurvedic kind of alternative, if you will, or like the alternative equivalent, you could say, to taking vitamins. Someone says, can we get the PowerPoint presentation? I had a feeling this question may come, so I did ask, and I believe we can share that with you after the presentation. So we can do that. And we have a question here. What do you recommend to eat if my hair is falling more than usual? And this again is something that could be better addressed in a one-on-one consultation just because we want to determine what are the root causes of the hair fall. We typically see that hair fall and even premature graying of hair happens due to a buildup of the fire element in the mind and in the body. When there's a lot of heat coming into the body in terms of very spicy foods, in terms of heated thoughts, in terms of even staying up late at night, this can all increase the heat and increase the fire in the body. And having too much of the fire is typically what causes the hair to fall. The hair can also fall because of too much of the air and space elements, which causes some of this kind of thing. So we just have to determine which one, or maybe it's both, are causing the situation, and then accordingly we can address the root causes for you in terms of your foods and the herbs that you take. There are some really powerful herbs actually that can help to build back your hair and to prevent further hair loss. Typically, the foods that are helpful for hair are those that are quite unctuous and sweet and nourishing. So things like dates, things like sweet potatoes, things like carrots, these are all really good for building back your hair. Raisins are also really good. So that sweet, moist kind of taste will be really helpful. We have to just determine then what are you able to digest in that. Sometimes the sweet things like sweet potatoes or even the dates can be a little bit heavier for people, so they're not able to digest it as well. Therefore, we just would put together kind of a custom approach to spices that you can use for them to ensure that you're able to digest it. Once we can ensure that, then the food will really help you. It's all about your digestion ultimately, and then we can accordingly put in the therapeutic friends and spices and herbs to further support that process. Reshma has a question. I use black pepper and ginger on all meals. Is that a bad thing? Well, it depends. Everything is according to you, and it's according to what you're experiencing right now. So if you are having a lot of heat related symptoms, people who are having like shingles, for example, or even a lot of breakouts in the skin, or hyperacidity or reflux, then having black pepper and ginger would probably be too heating, and I would say, yeah, that wouldn't be a good idea. But say if you're on the opposite end of things and you're having a lot of respiratory issues and you're having some water retention perhaps in your body, then having black pepper and ginger would be helpful because the heat will help to lessen the impact of the respiratory issues and the water retention. But again, it's just about how you are assimilating the black pepper and ginger and what kind of effects they are observed to have on you. For example, I personally don't use them because I will get hot and my skin will start to get red if I have too much of black pepper and ginger on all meals. So I don't do it. Some people just don't do it during the seasons where there's more heat, like the fall season, but they may do it in the winter season and the spring season, which Ayurveda recommends as great time for having black pepper and ginger for relatively healthy, balanced individuals. So it's a bit of a overarching long answer to a short question, but it does depend, and these are some of the factors why. Do you believe in calorie counting to lose weight? No, I don't. In Ayurveda, we don't look at calories. In Ayurveda, we really look, of course, you must know by now that we look at digestion, and then we look at the balance of the five elements in the body. If someone is having a lot of trouble losing weight and having water retention, for example, then we would say there's probably too much water in the body. Water element can make it hard to lose weight. So, in that case, we would have to safely increase the fire element and even the air and space elements, which are going to help to lose weight. We would want to increase fire through foods, through spices, through exercise, through movement, through even doing some analysis, getting the mind going. It's really interesting because they give different ideas for therapeutic measures for all the different doshas or the mind body types in Ayurveda. The therapeutic practice for people who have a lot of the kapha dosha, which is water element and earth element, is to actually scare them. So they say when someone is struggling with too much of water and earth in the body and therefore having trouble losing weight, we would put a snake on them. And just the act of them getting scared and getting up and running will help to start bring that earth and water element into balance by having fire and air moving. So we have a different approach to how we look at weight loss. Christina, do you have some recipes to share for the season? Yes, absolutely. Just go to theancientway.co. I see that it's in the chat box here, so you literally can click that link, and then you can download a PDF right there with 3 favorite fall recipes for this season. One is a cooling green curry, Thai green curry. One is a calming cauliflower Alfredo. It's really, really good alternative to regular fettuccine Alfredo. And the third is a paneer dish, which is a vegan paneer dish. And they're really, really great for the fall season. So I definitely recommend you click the link and download it and enjoy. Alina has a question. How long should we wait in between meals? Is there an ideal duration of time we should respect during a meal? Example given, what is the ideal digestion time? Yeah, so typically we would say we would wait in between meals like 4 to 5 hours. The ideal time for breakfast would be around 8 o'clock, between 7:30 to 8:30 would be excellent. The ideal lunchtime would be between 12 or 12:30 to 1 or 1:30. The ideal dinner would be like 5 to 6 or ideally before 7 p.m. It's really helpful to have that space in between the meals to ensure that we digested the previous meal before we eat more food. You will know the right timing because your natural hunger will start to get activated. When you start to eat kind of at these timings, then your body will accordingly get hungry at these timings. It's more important to eat when you actually feel your stomach growling. It's not a bad thing when you feel that. It's actually a really good thing. It means that you are ready for food and it's time to eat. If you eat when you don't really feel that fire or that stomach grumbling or growling sensation, then it may not be the most optimal time in terms of your digestion. And there's a follow-up question. What is your point of view on fasting and its frequency? We don't like to do heavy fasting in Ayurveda. We would say it's helpful if you have a lot of toxic buildup in the body and you need a detox. But even then, we would still do really light recipes. We would do like a really light mung dal khichdi, which is mung lentil, beans, and rice, mixed with some simple spices like cumin seeds, fennel seeds, some ghee as the oil alternative. And that would be really helpful, or even lighter than that, like a gruel kind of thing with rice and a few simple spices. We would recommend hot water. We would recommend honey. These are all like fasting friends, if you will, but they're foods because we don't want to keep the body without food for too long. That will increase the air and space elements, and that leads to a lot of imbalances in the body. So, we view fasting as something that can be done really carefully when there is truly a need for it and you don't have any capacity to digest food and you have really, really bad indigestion. Wonderful. Well, it's exactly time, and I think we finished all the questions. So, thank you all so much. It's been such a pleasure to be with you, and I hope to connect with you again soon. And please definitely check me out online and keep in touch that way. Thank you so much again.